3 of the Vox AC30 1963 copper top. If you remember when we finished in part 2, we'd had this amp up and running okay, and we'd had some faults which turned out to be bad capacitors, and we'd obviously replaced all the main electrolytics. They were fine, but we'd started working on these boards and we'd found a very severely leaking capacitor there. These two were leaking onto the grids of the, although not much, the grids on the output tubes. We replaced a capacitor here that was leaking. Well, I just fell to bits. That was that Hunt's capacitor. So we've got Vichets, more Vichets, more Vichets, and they are the 470 nanofarads which will replace these two. Cornell Doublier for the 500 pico, no expense spared there. They're great caps. More Vichets and so on. So they're what we're going to be putting in this amplifier. So these two caps are leaking, but they're only leaking 4 volts onto those more tubes, and they're showing no signs that they've been running hot. But positive voltage on the grid pushes the bias up on the tubes. So what we're going to do is run this amp up only for a few minutes, and we're going to check the bias on these capacitors, and then we're going to replace them with the 470 nanofarads, and then we're going to do the bias again, and we're going to see just how much that 4 volts has pushed up the bias. So I'm going to set it all up again so we can power it up, and I shall be back in a minute. Right, so we've got that up and running. You just quite can't see that meter, but it's we're just going to do this quick. So 12, it's actually a bit up and down, about 12.6 we've got on there. 12.6, that's the voltage drop across the bias resistor. 12.6. And I've measured the resistor, it's 82.7 ohms. It's an 82 ohm resistor, so that's pretty accurate after 60 years, isn't it? That's 152 milliamps. Remember, we've got 4 tubes there, not 2 as we normally have. 38 milliamps, so they're not massively over. Take away 5%. 36 milliamps. Now we just need to get the the plate to cathode of voltage. So 11.3 watts with the leaky capacitors. So within range there, 12 watts dissipation, remember, so within range. So what we're going to do now is power down, swap these two capacitors, and check it again. Right, let's check the bias again now. We've removed those caps. You can see we've got our 47s in there, sorry, 470s in there, and we're going to check the bias again. And now the bias is 10.25. So there's over a watt's difference there with just 4 volts leaking onto those grids. So imagine if there was 8 volts leaking onto those grids, or even 10 volts, 12 volts leaking, those tubes would be red hot. Right, we've got this, all the caps done on this now, and now we're turning his attention to just a couple of things that are left. And one is this switch, and what's happened with this switch here, if we just zoom in, what's happened is the nuts come loose at some time. Someone's turned the whole thing and snapped off the resistors. One resistor missing. This is the speed for the tremolo speed setting. I've looked on the schematic. There's a 330k, a 560k, 560k. That says 560R on the schematic, so that's a bit of an error, isn't it? And 1 meg. Yes. Now, of course, the other problem with this is the fact that it means we're going to put modern resistors in, but I have got 1 or 2 vintage, in fact I've got a tin full of vintage resistors. Sadly I don't have those values or I did find a 1 meg. What have I done with that? Here, which will go in. So he's a little bit over, but I'm going to put him in because it's only a tremolo switch at the end of the day. So I'm going to pop him in, and that'll fit the part. Or I can put a brand new resistor in, but it's just going to stick out like a sore thumb. And I know we've got these other capacitors in, but I'm trying to avoid putting in new resistors if I can. So I've got that one, so I'm going to straighten up the legs on that and pop him in. The 330k still got a little bit of lead on. I might get away with using that one, and I mistakenly soldered that onto that end pin there. I wasn't really looking what, I just assumed there was one off, and then that one was bent over, and then I noticed that was broken, and I think I've put that on the wrong pin, so I'm going to take that off. I've checked on the schematic. So we're going to get that up and running next and test the tremolo. The other thing that's left, of course, is this cable, which is the foot switch, which has been cut in half. So I bought some new cable for that, and we're going to fix the foot switch up. Right, we've got this tremolo working, and I found a 470k resistor there, which measured 526, and that's worked pretty well. So if I just turn up the volume, yeah, just put it up to the speaker. Like so. So he's all done. So all we've got to do now is the foot switch, which I've bridged at the minute to get the tremolo to work. It just seem a bit noisy though, this channel. And right, I've got the Vox on the Marshall cab. We've fixed the foot switch, just put a new cable on it, simple enough job. We've sorted that switch out for the trem, there's no problem. So we're ready to give this a bit of a blast. So we'll start with the brilliant channel. It's incredibly loud as well. The strangest thing is, wired up from the factory, the tone control's wired up the wrong way round. Look, on that one, don't quite know what that's about, but yeah, so I think I'm going to leave that, seeing as it was done in the factory. All adds to its nostalgia. This amp sounds great. Let's try the normal channel. If we go into the trem channel, something doesn't seem quite right on that channel to me. So that Vib Trem channel does not sound quite as good. It's also a little noisy. This amp is a little on the noisy side because these amps are known for having a poor ground scheme, and as I said, I've only done the bare minimum on this. I've not started altering, modding and changing grounds and things. I've just tried to keep this as original. Remember, that was the idea of this. We was only going to do enough to get this amp up and running. I'm still not sure about that tremolo. That don't sound very clever, does it? And I wonder whether that's the capacitors. Don't know about that. I have to say, I've been not used a lot of amps with tremolo, not being a particular fan of it, but that doesn't sound quite right to me. So that channel may need a coat of looking at, but apart from that, this amp's sounding great now, and definitely, and of course, it's now running with no issues of you know, the possibility of doing any damage to the transformers. All the capacitors are replaced. Any leaky capacitors on the boards have been changed. I run the amp for a while and then went through the capacitors and checked them again, and all the rest of those Weimars are fine. The only thing that I do see as a problem is that tremolo, and that could be the caps. Could just be the caps are tied on there, I don't know. So, But I think that'll do it now for this amp. This is part 3, and we've got this amp up and running. That was the object, is to get this amp up and running with, you know, without changing too many components in it, and we've achieved that. We've got a new foot switch cable on it because that was obviously been cut in half somehow, so we've done that as well. So I think, yeah, it's a great sounding amp, and we've just got to look at that tremolo section. There just seems to be something not right, but other than that shouldn't be too much of a job. I'm not going to film that because it should be changing some caps or something. So that's it for this one. So thanks for watching. It's been a bit of a long one, this Vox has, with the 3 parts, but it's been interesting. So thanks for watching, you all take care, and I'll see you all in another video. Bye bye for now.